Teaching physical education at the Galactic Academy of Higher Learning isn't typically viewed as a perilous occupation, at least, that's what I, Zix Leah, believed upon accepting the position 3 cycles prior. Possessing 4 arms and enhanced gravitational resistance, I was exceptionally well suited to demonstrate proper movement techniques to our diverse student body. Prestigious, undoubtedly, dangerous, never well, until today. Allow me to depict a typical morning within my gymnasium. The anti-gravity fields hum softly, maintaining our standard 0.8 gravity setting. The reinforced pastel walls gleam under the artificial sunlight, tailored to accommodate species from every corner of the galaxy. My students float, crawl, and glide in through the main entrance, their various appendages moving with that universal early morning sluggishness common to teenagers of all species. There's Mara, her translucent tentacles gracefully propelling her across the floor. Behind her, Pax lumbers in on his short, stocky legs, his thick protective scales still displaying signs of sleep polish. The twins from Centaur Prime, their gaseous forms contained within their environmental suits, bounce excitedly near the ceiling. 23 students in total, each representing the finest their homeworld has to offer. You see, the Galactic Academy isn't just any educational institution, we are the most prestigious preparatory academy in 3 spiral arms of the galaxy. Our graduates go on to become planetary governors, corporate magnates, and scientific pioneers. That's why our physical education program focuses exclusively on low-impact activities. We can't risk any injuries to these future leaders. The traditional morning routine begins with breathing exercises. For some species, this entails cycling through their 4th lung, while others practice photosynthetic absorption rates. I demonstrate the movements with practiced ease, my forearms flowing through the air in perfect synchronization. Thanks to the Academy's sophisticated atmospheric controls, even our gaseous students can participate without their containment suits in a special section of the gym. Today's lesson plan is characteristic of our carefully curated curriculum: gentle stretching exercises, followed by controlled floating in the reduced gravity field, and concluding with synchronized movement patterns. Nothing too strenuous, nothing too risky. The most dangerous thing in my class is usually Pax accidentally releasing his defensive spores when he gets nervous during agility tests. The hollow screen on the wall displays our Academy's motto in shimmering letters: unity through understanding. Below it, the ever-scrolling feed of safety protocols and environmental warnings provides a constant reminder of our commitment to protective education. The medical bay is always on standby, equipped to handle everything from methane poisoning to sudden molting episodes. As I take attendance, my third eye scanning the class roster projected into the air, I notice a slight vibration in my notification pad, a message from Dean Vor marked urgent. My primary heart skips a beat as I read it, while my backup heart maintains its steady rhythm. A new student transfer mid-semester at the Galactic Academy. This is highly irregular. But what causes all 4 of my hearts to stutter is the classification attached to the student file: Deathworlder. The word hangs in my vision like a toxic warning sign. In all my years of teaching, through all the diverse species I have instructed, I have never had a Deathworlder in my class. Most of them don't even leave their high-gravity, high-oxygen death trap of a planet. The few that do certainly don't enroll in prestigious academies. I glance at my current students, blissfully unaware of the news, as they practice their morning stretches. The Centaur twins are performing their usual elegant gas exchange dance near the ceiling. Mara has extended her tentacles to their full 15-meter span, gracefully weaving through the air. Even Pax seems relaxed, his armored plates shifting smoothly as he moves through his stretching routine. How am I supposed to integrate a Deathworlder into this delicate ecosystem? Our entire curriculum is built around low-impact, safe activities. According to the file, this new student comes from a planet with 2.1 times our standard gravity. Their bones are reinforced with naturally occurring metal deposits, their muscles are dense enough to bend structural steel. The notification pad vibrates again: the new student will be arriving tomorrow. I have exactly 1 rotation to revise my entire teaching plan, update the safety protocols, and somehow prepare my current students for their first encounter with a Deathworlder. As I watch my class move through their familiar routines, I can't help but wonder, how do you teach physical education to someone who could accidentally tear down the walls? The morning of the Deathworlder's arrival, I arrive 3 hours early to triple-check the safety protocols. The maintenance crew had already reinforced the equipment with high-tension Duralloy cables, and the gravity controls had been upgraded to handle sudden spikes in gravitational preferences. I had even installed new emergency shutdown switches at every corner of the gymnasium, but somehow it still didn't feel like enough. My students gathered as usual, their morning chatter filling the air with a mix of clicking sounds, harmonic vibrations, and electromagnetic pulses. I cleared my throat, producing the specific frequency that would get their attention. "Class, today we welcome a new student," I announced. Her name can be shortened to Alex, and she comes from Earth. The last word caused a ripple of alarmed pheromones to sweep through the room. Even the Centaur twins stopped their perpetual bouncing. Mara's tentacles curled anxiously. Earth? The death planet? The one with active volcanic regions where they just live? The same planet where the atmospheric oxygen levels can spontaneously combust? Pax's scales rattled nervously, a few defensive spores escaping despite his best efforts. Before I could respond, the gymnasium doors slid open with a soft hiss. The figure that stepped through them wasn't the terrifying monster I had imagined, but that somehow made it worse. Alexander Parker, or Alex as she preferred, looked deceptively normal, and that was perhaps the most unsettling thing about her. She stood upright on two legs, her height slightly above average for the class. Her external covering, which I learned was called clothing, consisted of standard-issue Academy exercise wear, modified for her bipedal form. Her exposed skin was a pale pink color, and atop her head sat a mass of golden-brown strands that she had pulled back into what she called a ponytail. "Hi everyone," her voice carried across the room with surprising clarity. "I'm Alex, thanks for having me in your class." She smiled, exposing her bone-white teeth, an evolutionary remnant of her species' predatory past. The class maintained a respectful distance as she actually walked, not hovered or glided, to join the group. Each step she took made a soft but distinct sound against the reinforced floor. According to my research, humans typically weighed between 50 and 100 kilos, concentrated on just 2 impact points. The floor's pressure sensors were already registering numbers that made me nervous. Mara, ever the diplomat, extended one tentacle in greeting. "Welcome to the Galactic Academy. I'm Mara. Your gravity must be very different here." Alex's laugh echoed through the gymnasium, causing several students to activate their defensive mechanisms. "Oh yeah, this feels like I'm bouncing on the moon. Though I guess none of you have been to Earth's moon. It's about 1/6 of Earth's gravity, which makes this." She paused, doing quick mental calculations. "Kind of similar." I watched in horror as she demonstrated by doing a small hop that sent her nearly 3 meters into the air. She landed with perfect control, but the impact sent vibrations through the reinforced floor that my sensors definitely registered. "Perhaps we should begin with our standard safety orientation," I suggested quickly, all 3 of my eyes fixed on the human. "Alex, would you mind sharing any specific requirements or concerns we should be aware of?" "Oh, right." She pulled out a datapad that looked comically robust compared to our standard issue ones. "I need about 3 times the oxygen content of most species here. My optimal temperature is around 20 degrees Celsius, and I should probably mention I have dense bone structure and enhanced muscle tissue compared to galactic standard." After class, Dean Vore called an emergency administrative meeting. I sat in the conference room surrounded by holograms of various department heads as we discussed the situation. "Her strength levels are off our standard charts," the medical officer reported, her bioluminescent patterns showing clear concern. "Her bones are laced with calcium deposits harder than some industrial materials, and her muscle density, well, she could theoretically punch through a standard wall." Dean Vore's stalk swiveled thoughtfully. "But she has shown remarkable control. The records from her previous school indicate no accidents, no injuries. She's also displaying advanced problem-solving skills," added the academic advisor. "She's already figured out how to adjust her movements to account for our gravity without any formal training." I raised all 4 of my hands to get attention. "The real question is, how do we adapt our physical education program? Our equipment isn't designed for her strength level, and our standard exercises would barely qualify as warm-ups for her species. We cannot compromise the safety of our other students," Dean Vore stated firmly, but we also cannot discriminate against any species, even Deathworlders. Zix Leah, you will need to develop a parallel curriculum. Push your creativity to its limits. As I left the meeting, I passed Alex in the hallway. She was helping Pax, who had apparently dropped his datapad. Her movements were carefully controlled, deliberately gentle, as she handed the device back to him. Despite her tremendous strength, she moved with an awareness that spoke of long practice at being careful in a fragile world. Maybe, just maybe, this wouldn't end in disaster. But as I watched her accidentally leave finger-shaped dents in the Duralloy handrail while trying to be careful, I couldn't help but wonder what tomorrow's actual gym class would bring. The next morning arrived with the terrible timing of a solar flare, standard fitness assessment day. I had considered postponing it, but regulations required a baseline evaluation for all new students within their first 3 days. Besides, this would give us concrete data about human capabilities in our environment. Today's assessment consists of 5 standard trials, I announced to the class, my voice steady despite my anxiety: flexibility, endurance, reaction time, coordination, and adaptability. Remember, this is not a competition. The assessment began normally enough. Mara demonstrated her species' incredible flexibility by flowing through the obstacle course like liquid silk, her tentacles gracefully navigating each challenge. The Centaur twins performed their usual impressive display of gaseous diffusion through the reaction time gates. Pax, despite his bulk, showed remarkable coordination in the precision movement test. Then came Alex's turn. Should I adjust my performance to match the local gravity?" she asked, bouncing lightly on her toes. The motion, though slight, sent ripples through the reinforced floor. "Perform at your comfortable capacity," I instructed, all 3 of my eyes focused on her while my hands hovered over the emergency protocols, "but please be mindful of the equipment's structural limits." Alex nodded and stepped up to the first station, the flexibility assessment. The standard course consisted of a series of rings positioned at various heights and angles, designed to test a species' ability to navigate tight spaces. Most students would spend at least 15 minutes carefully working their way through. Alex took one look at the course, crouched down, and my heart nearly stopped as she launched herself into a series of movements that defied my understanding of bipedal biomechanics. She twisted through the air, her body contorting in ways that seemed to ignore skeletal limitations. What should have been a careful navigation turned into an acrobatic display that would have impressed professional entertainers. Time, 3 minutes, 22 seconds, the computer announced. The previous record was 12 minutes. The endurance test came next. Students were required to maintain continuous movement while the gravity gradually increased. Alex started jogging, actually jogging, not hovering or gliding, as the gravity began to rise. At 1.2 standard gravity, Pax had to step back. At 1.5, even the Centaur twins condensed into their high-pressure form. Alex kept jogging. At 1.8 gravity, she switched from jogging to walking but kept moving. "This is getting closer to home," she commented casually, as if she wasn't performing what most species would consider a physical impossibility. When the gravity hit 2.1, matching Earth standard, she actually smiled. "Should we stop?" I asked, concerned about the strain on our gravity generators. "Oh, we can go higher if you want," she offered helpfully. "I used to do weight training at 3G back home." I quickly ended that test. The reaction time assessment caused several of my students to emit distress signals. Alex's responses weren't just fast, they were anticipatory. She was moving before the signals even fully registered on our equipment. After her 5th perfect score, I had to check if the system was malfunctioning. "Sorry," she said, looking genuinely apologetic. Human survival reflexes are pretty intense. We evolved as pursuit predators, so our brains got really good at predicting movement patterns. The coordination test involved manipulating multiple objects while maintaining balance. Alex decided to make it interesting by juggling the test spheres, all of them at once, while walking a balance beam in variable gravity. "This is actually really fun," she exclaimed casually, tossing a sphere behind her back and catching it. The lower gravity makes it easier to keep things in the air, though I have to be careful not to throw too hard. I accidentally sent a ball through my bedroom wall yesterday. The final test, adaptability, was meant to evaluate how well students could handle unexpected environmental changes. The chamber would randomly alter gravity, temperature, and atmospheric pressure within safe limits. Alex treated it like a game. When the gravity dropped, she used it to perform what she called a backflip. When it increased, she adjusted her stance and kept moving. Temperature changes barely registered to her, and pressure variations just made her ears pop occasionally. By the end of the assessment, my entire class had forgotten their fear, replaced by fascinated curiosity. They crowded around Alex, bombarding her with questions. "Can all humans do these things?" Mara asked, her tentacles waving with excitement. "More or less," Alex replied, "though some are better at different things. My friend Sarah back home is way better at gymnastics than me, and my brother can lift almost twice what I can." "What's the highest you can jump in Earth gravity?" one of the Centaur twins pulsed eagerly. "About 1.5 meters straight up, I guess." "Here it would be." She glanced at me nervously. "Want me to demonstrate?" "Perhaps another time," I interjected quickly, noticing the strain gauges on the floor were already at 60% capacity from her normal walking. "Your species evolved as pursuit predators?" Pax asked, his usual nervousness now tinged with awe, "But you seem so controlled." Alex's expression softened. "We had to be. Humans are really strong compared to a lot of species, so we spend a lot of time learning to be gentle. It's like, imagine if you couldn't control your defensive spores, you'd have to be careful all the time, right?" That simple explanation seemed to click with the class. Suddenly, Alex wasn't just a terrifying Deathworlder, she was someone who understood what it meant to be careful with your own capabilities. As I filed away the assessment data, most of which had exceeded our measurement capabilities, I realized something important. The real test hadn't been about Alex's physical abilities, it had been about control. Every movement, every action had been carefully calculated to work within our limitations while still demonstrating her capabilities. Maybe, just maybe, this Deathworlder was going to teach us as much as we could teach her. The days following Alex's assessment brought a strange new atmosphere to my gymnasium. Whispered conversations would stop abruptly when she entered the room. Some students would drift away when she approached, while others seemed drawn to her like particles to a gravity well. "Did you see what she did in 0G training yesterday?" I overheard Mara telling a group during warm-ups. "She used the wall to launch herself across the entire chamber. The instructor said no other species has ever thought to use momentum that way." "Yes, but did you also see the dent she left in the wall?" Pax countered, his scales shifting nervously. "What if that had been one of us instead of a wall?" The class had naturally split into two groups. The admirers, led by Mara, treated Alex like a fascinating new discovery. The cautious, following Pax's lead, maintained a careful distance. This division became glaringly obvious during partner exercises. "Perhaps Alex should sit this one out," suggested Vila, a gaseous student, when we began practicing assisted stretching routines. "Our molecular structure is too delicate for direct contact." I watched Alex's face fall slightly before she quickly covered it with a smile. "No problem, I understand. I will just practice on my own." But Mara surprised everyone by floating forward. "I will partner with Alex. My species has excellent regenerative capabilities, and I'm curious about human movement patterns." The pair worked together beautifully, Alex displaying incredible gentleness as she helped Mara stretch her tentacles. Not once did she apply too much pressure or make a wrong move. Their success only highlighted the others' reluctance to include her. During anti-gravity ball games, some students would never pass to Alex, claiming they were worried about her returning the ball too forcefully. She took to positioning herself near the boundaries, making herself as unobtrusive as possible in a way that seemed practiced. "You know," she told me after one particularly awkward class, "this isn't so different from my old school on Earth. I was always the strongest kid there too, just not quite this dramatically." The situation reached a tipping point during our aquatic adaptation session. The pool's buoyancy could be adjusted to accommodate different species' density requirements. When it was Alex's turn, several students quickly evacuated the pool. "Humans are apex predators in water too," I heard one student whisper. They can hold their breath for minutes and swim faster than most aquatic species. But then Alex did something unexpected. Instead of her usual careful performance, she sat on the edge of the pool, removed her protective footwear, and dangled her feet in the water. "Anyone want to learn how humans play Marco Polo?" she asked, her voice carrying a hint of hope. "What's Marco Polo?" Mara inquired, tentacles curling with curiosity. "It's like a sound location game. One person closes their eyes and says Marco, everyone else has to respond with Polo, and you try to tag someone just by listening." The simplicity and playfulness of the game slowly drew students in. Even Pax, after watching for a while, joined in. By the end of the session, laughter and shouts of Marco Polo echoed through the gymnasium. Meanwhile, I struggled with my own teaching methods. Traditional exercises seemed pointless for someone of Alex's capabilities, but letting her perform at full capacity risked frightening the other students. Every lesson plan became a diplomatic balancing act. "You are doing fine," Dean Vor assured me during our weekly review. "The fact that there haven't been any accidents is remarkable. But am I actually teaching her anything?" I questioned, my frustration evident in the color of my spots. "She's holding back in every activity. It feels like we are asking her to spend her entire day walking on eggshells." "Perhaps," the dean's eye stalk swiveled thoughtfully, "that is exactly what she needs to learn, not physical education in the traditional sense, but the fine control required to interact with diverse species." The dean's words stuck with me as I watched Alex in the following days, the way she calculated every movement, how she adjusted her strength for each interaction, her constant awareness of her surroundings. These were skills as valuable as any physical achievement. Still, I couldn't shake the feeling that something had to change. The division in my class was affecting everyone's performance. The admirers were becoming increasingly defensive of Alex, while the cautious group grew more resistant to any activity that included her. As I prepared for the next day's lesson, I noticed a notification about the upcoming inter-class competition. Traditionally, each class would compete in a series of physical challenges against other classes. Looking at the standard event list, I realized this might be either our greatest opportunity or our biggest disaster. The question was, could I find a way to turn Alex's differences from a source of division into a point of unity, or would the competition only heighten the tensions already simmering in my class? The annual inter-class competition announcement came during our morning assembly. Dean Vor's hologram flickered above the gathering, all four eyes oriented toward the students with ceremonial formality. This cycle's theme is Unified Excellence. The dean's harmonic tones resonated through the hall. Each class must demonstrate coordination across species in 3 events: synchronized movement, obstacle navigation, and group problem-solving under variable conditions. My heart sank as I reviewed the competition requirements. Teams would need to work in close physical proximity, every member would have to participate. There was no way to discreetly sideline Alex. "Team selections will begin immediately," I announced to my class, trying to sound more confident than I felt. "Please submit your preferred roles by the end of today's session." The tension was immediate. Students clustered in their usual groups, shooting uncertain glances at Alex, who stood slightly apart from everyone else, examining the competition guidelines on her reinforced data pad. "I volunteer Alex for our team," Mara announced, her tentacles rippling with determination. Pax's scales rattled in alarm. "But the synchronized movement event requires physical contact." "One wrong move, I can be careful," Alex interjected softly, "or I could take a supporting role, maybe spot for others during the more challenging sequences." The debate might have continued, but the Centaur twins suddenly pulsed with excitement. "Look at these physics calculations for the obstacle course." "With Alex's strength and our ability to alter air density, no way," interrupted another student. "It's too dangerous." One miscalculation and the argument was cut short by a thunderous crack from above. My third eye snapped upward just in time to see the catastrophe unfolding. One of the ancient gravitational stabilizers, groaning under decades of use, had finally given out. The massive device, easily weighing several tons, was plummeting toward the gathered students. Everything happened in a blur of motion. The Centaur twins dispersed in panic, their gaseous forms scattering. Pax instinctively curled into his defensive ball form, scales locked tight. Mara's tentacles whipped out, trying to grab as many smaller students as possible and pull them clear, but they were all too slow. Alex moved like nothing I had ever seen. In the space of 2 heartbeats, she crossed the room in a burst of speed that our sensors couldn't even track. Her legs coiled and launched her upward with explosive force. Her hands, those 5-fingered appendages we had all worried about, reached up to meet the falling stabilizer. The impact should have crushed her. Instead, Alex's muscles bunched visibly as she caught the massive device. The floor beneath her feet cracked from the transferred force, but she held firm. For a moment, she stood there holding up what must have been at least 4 times her body weight, making sure everyone had cleared the area. "Could someone spot me for a second?" she asked through gritted teeth. "This thing is awkward to balance." Mara's tentacles immediately wrapped around one side of the stabilizer, while Pax, emerging from his defensive curl, rushed to brace the other side. The Centaur twins reformed and used their control over gases to help stabilize the air pressure around the precariously balanced device. Together, they managed to slowly lower the stabilizer to the ground. The moment it was safely down, everyone started talking at once. "That was amazing. Did you see how fast the strength required to? You saved us all." Alex stood there brushing metal dust off her hands, looking almost embarrassed by the attention. "I just reacted. On Earth, we have these things called cars. They weigh about this much. Sometimes they fall off their maintenance lifts, so every mechanic learns how to dodge or brace them." "Cars regularly fall on humans?" Pax asked, his scales now shimmering with a new color I had never seen him display before: admiration. "Well, not regularly," Alex laughed, "but we like to be prepared. Better to have the strength and not need it, you know?" I noticed something remarkable happening. The students who had been most afraid of Alex's strength were now gathered closest to her, asking questions about human emergency responses. The previous divide between admirers and cautious had vanished in the face of her protective instincts. "So all that control you show," Mara realized, "it's not just about not hurting us, it's about being ready to help." "Exactly," Alex smiled. "Humans are strong because our world demands it, but we learn control because our communities need it. Being able to open an egg without breaking it is just as important as being able to lift a fallen tree off someone." The next few hours transformed my class. Students who had avoided Alex now sought her advice on emergency procedures. Those who had admired her strength now showed equal appreciation for her restraint. The competition preparation took on a new energy as everyone